Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Goda Grannar podcast, where we try to facilitate better collaboration through neighborliness as a strategy. With me today as a guest, I have Eva Sula, calling in from Tallinn, I believe, who's here to talk to us about what true deterrence truly means. Eva, very much welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
For those that haven't come across your work on perhaps LinkedIn, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Yes, so greetings from sunny Tallinn. What I do daily is I work with defense, and I am defense advisor, strategic advisor. I work with the militaries, military institutions. I work with primes, helping building ecosystems, and I do work with defense and dual use innovators who are trying to understand what defense is, what works, and how to break into defense and how to tackle. And I work across NATO countries, but also Ukraine and of course ally countries outside NATO. Multiple things are going in this field.
Sounds like it's a very multifaceted job that perhaps can be likened to being a pathfinder in a land where most people are stumbling into quite recently from having been someplace else.
True that, and this world at the moment is like there's a lot of like molecules bouncing around. There's end users, there's primes, there's innovation, there's research, and a lot of other particles, but they kind of don't collide. And that's what I'm trying to do, is help them collide and make more sense of each other and help actually get things adopted and moving and help adjusting to the world where we are and what is happening around, what we're seeing from Ukraine daily, now Iran, and yeah, it's for the defense side, it's also bridging 30+ year gaps. It's not easy for any side today.
Sounds a little bit like you are something in between a traveling show and a particle accelerator, trying to make these worlds collide.
This way, yeah. Connecting the dots is, I think, the best way how to describe what I do.
And we're very happy to have you here on this show where we are trying to map out the new reality. Of course, around the thesis that, which is very much in rhyming with yours, true deterrence means collaboration. We believe that neighborliness as a strategy is how we build our preparedness. And as a focus for today's discussion, I thought we could look at the Baltic Sea region. Of course, I'm based in Sweden. You're currently from Tallinn, looking at this very vibrant area, very much next to ongoing conflict. And as a way of trying to understand it, I thought we could do our very best to look at this Baltic Sea region in particular through the lens of Russia. And there's a concept here that I know you have written a lot about called Maskirovka. My pronunciation is not 100% exact, but how does Russia look at current conflict and in particular this region around the Baltic Sea? And how has that been true throughout time?
So Maskirovka is first time in Russia. It showed in Battle of Bulikov, 1380. So 600+ years. It's been around like many things in Russian so-called, if somebody says Gerasimov doctrine today, it's actually a lot of things that have been around. They are now just amplified with new technologies and internet and everything else around it, which simplifies many things that Russia has always been doing. But basically, Maskirovka is a term for military and political and strategic deception. And today we see it in various ways. Of course, one way is the camouflage, decoys, false alarm flags, all kinds of activities to distract, cause what is ongoing questions. Is it this? Is it that?
Ambiguity.
ambiguity, concealment, intimidation, simulation. It's like building exactly like what is real. And today we're seeing it, what people are starting to feel and see more and more is all kinds of also dis and misinformation campaigns. That is like what has been since Cold War, but that's basically Maskirovka. We see, also, of course, also cyber attacks, which is growing, and we're seeing many very big and violent ones. And Sweden, including Finland, since joining NATO, has seen state motivated attacks, which is for something in the Baltic countries and the Poland we haven't seen for a while. Estonia had 2007, the Bronze Night, and what happened then. And it's still like how things should be resolved, case in NATO. And then, of course, when we look also in Ukraine on the battlefield, there's a lot of just the decoys, false maneuvers, and all the other things. So it's the cause overwhelm, distract, and cause questions. What is that? So that puts pressure on decision making because you don't even know anymore what is real and what is not real, and that will start undermining your own judgment and the other's judgment. That means breaking the trust. Because ultimate goal for the Russia is definitely break the trust in the societies within us, within our neighbors, and in shared and joint collaboration, which is also your angle, which you raised, the Baltic Sea. And do we have this collaboration today in? I can say we don't in a level which is needed, or would it really work or make Russia question like, wait, what they're doing now? Because true deterrence is collaboration, and if you could manage to do that, then that would be Maskirovka for them.
So what could be an iron ring around the Baltic Sea if most of, if not all, the countries there were more collaborative? And we'll talk about what that would entail. That would make Russia less likely to consider a more conventional type of attack. But currently that is how it may view the sort of non-battlefield of the Baltic region. If I'm not misunderstanding you, that through this lens of Maskirovka, undermining, creating ambiguity, false flag operations, intimidation, indirectness, that is the current strategy, softening up our deterrence.
Exactly, and what Sweden has also seen, cyber attacks, things have happened in Gotland, the drone with the French frigate, and we see all kinds of other activities as well. We can count also Shadow Fleet. Shadow Fleet can become very easily a platform to launch drone swarms. Add jamming and spoofing capabilities for the region, which will halt everything connected to GPS. There's a lot of things these days connected with GPS. So it touches every layer in society and in our functioning structures across critical infrastructure and public sector even. So there's a lot of very, very different angles. And most things don't even go into traditional kinetic warfare even. And we see sabotage growth, we see espionage growth, and we see how now AI is used to amplify everything in speeds you can't even respond. And the latest what they're doing on top of this is also they're poisoning open source databases with millions and millions of pieces of different kind of information, documents so-called, and also open source large language models. So if you're not sure what you're looking for, you don't know the subject well, you might end up with something completely wrong, and to make decisions based on that is very dangerous.
So that is part of the picture, how the Baltic Sea region, and not just that one, but that's our focus for today, is being prepared. Is that not too wrong a term, rather than openly attacked? But of course, governments here are not blind to this, yet it feels like, judging from what you write a lot about, most fail to see. What is it that holds us back? You have mentioned another particular syndrome, namely behaving like magpies. What are we focusing on rather than this more sticky problem you're painting a picture of?
So there's multiple layers. Let's start with the magpie side. It is the basically buying another shiny thingy. Has it been proven? Has it been validated? Is it in conflict today? Does it even make sense? Because what we've seen in Ukraine as well, what has been thought state of the art has not necessarily been that. And things that were like, oh, we should quit that thing has turned out to be one of the best things. And also how fast now things shift, especially when we talk about innovation sides like drone warfare, electromagnetic warfare. It's weeks, not months or years. And people are drawn to mostly like over-engineered, over-designed. Oh, this is shiny and beautiful and has a lot of bling and lights on it. But it's a death trap, basically. And if it's not even tested on the battlefield, it's not going to work. And then it just comes with a hefty price tag. And I had a discussion with maritime area security related topics, and even there, if you think about the drones or unmanned vessels, if Russia captures one, they cost like €1 million and beyond. How do you explain that even to citizens? It's very hard to explain. And well, Russia is after technology. You want to see what everybody's doing and learn from it and develop. They are learning, maybe the hard way, but they are. And that is the magpie syndrome. We just buy the things. And many cases when we talk about militaries, there is, like I said, decades old gaps in, and many ways it's also the past experience. And for NATO countries' experience basically is Afghanistan and Iraq, but what is in Ukraine is a completely different ball game now. And it comes with you're jammed, you're spoofed, you're hacked in different kind of combinations all the time.
At the same time.
At the same time, exactly. And you need to be always creative. I know devices, drones have like 6 different ways to communicate on it. If one doesn't work, we take another one, another one, another one. And still the success rate is relatively small compared with what is not working or basically drops dead. So success rates are small. That means the money is quite significant, and that means the cost matters massively. But if you talk about also the overall challenges, what also is a challenge for collaboration, there are also policy, and that is political will question. And I know that changing policies, because I've been in the government and contributed to that, it is not easy. It's very, very hard. And if you need to rewrite something to add like digital angles in it, digital data sharing, all of those angles, and you need to change a lot of things tied to it. Cyber laws, public sector, critical infrastructure. It's a chain reaction, basically. Kind of nobody wants to do that. It's ugly. And at the same time, there are laws of contradicting and confusing, which leads to overclassification. Just in case everything stamp on it, which means like you can't hardly use anything. And there's this common problem across Europe where also the militaries are like, where do we even begin? Because we kind of can't do anything. And then the innovation side expects like, oh, we'll get data and to train the models and do things. Like, no, you will not. And also the challenge is like, but who will label the data and how to get it even usable for them and so on. And then we have the black box issues ongoing where kind of you don't even understand what is actually happening behind the scenes. So the pressure is enormous. And that is also the magpie effect of the buzzwords like, oh, drone, oh, AI. AI decides on things. It won't. That's human judgment always, accountability always. And also the challenge, what I'm seeing is daily basis as well, but what to believe, what is true in these beautiful PowerPoint slides and presentations and fancy AI generated videos. The reality is completely something else, and this is the challenge. If it's not tested in Ukraine, you can't rely on it today. So it's what to buy, how not to be a magpie, but build and have the capabilities so we can swap and change technologies as they go, become obsolete, something new comes, but it doesn't require breaking everything or rebuilding everything, which is millions and millions and hundreds of millions. And of course, the other angle is how to even get this, when we talk about the key industries, primes to open and be willing to integrate in even innovation or necessary new capabilities in, because they are also safeguarding, and often it's political safeguarding, like because there are jobs and taxes and money and things behind. And that leads to a lot of other challenges because the ability to iterate and be up to date is very limited. So the speed matters, how we ensure supply chain topics. There are very big problems in Europe. If we talk about semiconductors, minerals, raw materials, all kinds of things. They are not resolved, and chips are a huge problem. It doesn't matter who and what it is, but if there should be any kind of crisis, then yeah, the big will get them first. Small can't scale. So it's we need to get over this very overcomplicated, fancy-looking greatness and ensure we have reliability, which basically is survivability, because no commander in Europe and in NATO and beyond, and I've talked with many, are willing to buy something which doesn't ensure that their men and women come back alive. And Ukraine is very straightforward with this. We're not letting anything on a battlefield which is not proven, because somebody will die. And this is also very hard for people to grasp from innovation side, but also society side, how hard and difficult it actually is. I was in a academic in Hague, and there was also one person, more private side, asked, "But these topics are so brutal. Maybe we shouldn't talk about it. They can cause trauma." Yeah, but we have basically coming from Ukraine now a few generations in a row whose lives they're lost lives now, and this is what is ongoing. And the adversarial powers are doing this sheer brutality. It's brutality we can't imagine even. So it's because we don't think this way. We don't emphasize and rule through fear and brutality. But that's what Russia is every day. That's very hard to grasp. So we're talking worlds which are very, very different. And the changes are so different and so rapid. It's very, very hard to adopt and like, okay, what we then should do, where we begin. But without the political will, it's very hard to change. And of course, politicians care about voters care about their own welfare. And then we are a little bit in this dead loop circling around. And then we have defense and national security side who are concerned, like, okay, but what shall we do? We are limited. So even in Sweden, there was a long debate how to get defense forces to Gotland even. So if we are stuck with these kind of discussions, we are losing very valuable time, rather than we need to, as a societies, figure out how we support and how we work together, and I've definitely also work with our neighbors and not just having summits and panel discussions, but
and
actually
PowerPoint presentations.
Exactly.
But it sounds like, I mean, ultimately, how do we begin to better prepare? Sounds like a case for frugal innovation, meaning starting very much from the grounds up with the cheapest possible and least difficult to supply components. I'm not an expert in the warfare in Ukraine, but it's not the big platform systems from the big primes that are prevailing. It's what people are able to innovate on the field. And then, of course, help them order better stuff based on those learning experiences. But being more willing, especially when it comes to the military and the so-called procurement behemoth of a ghost, to innovate with the least fancy components and iterate faster the way you do when you have to do it. That it sounds like that is part of the answer to how we overcome.
It's part of some of the answers, because why Ukraine went that pathway, because they didn't have the main platforms and things to put in. That's still the problem. Some days they have more, some days they are still like, okay, it's scarce. And also when we see now the signals coming from US that they are not going to deliver the orders to Europe anymore for time being. And considering the conflict ongoing in Iran and those, we don't know how long that's going to last. So and European own industrial base is still deeply fragmented, and we can't agree, and that they can't also scale when there's not enough commitments behind. And then countries are scouting where we can buy something because we kind of need everything at the same time. And then we have different kind of pace of things. When you want a ship, corvette, that's 10 years. Submarine, 10 years. It's a big, long project. Tank, few years. It's just, you don't roll them out. And then you need spare parts and a lot of creativity. And this is why Ukraine went this 3D printed in kitchens Lego drones with housewives. It was interesting comment, but when you are in a conflict and you need to defend your country and your people, all goes, and it doesn't matter what it is. And if you look the drones, there's no design. It's just ugly as November night, but it works because conditions are brutal. And another challenge in Europe is even we can't even test against this kind of level of electromagnetic warfare, which Ukraine does today and has captured because it's legally prohibited even. Then these lab tested things, they basically 20 seconds game over in Ukraine usually. 90% of things done in Europe, not tested, do not work. That adds another challenge layer. And of course, when we talk about how do we support what is there, because there's a lot of legacy that's going to stay, that's not going anywhere unless it's donated to Ukraine. But it's still the primed challenge. How do we integrate? Because you can't even change a bolt by yourself. You have to wait engineers to come to do that. That's the frustration of the armies. And sometimes also the armies end up getting the systems that procurement agencies are just buying, or their governmental decisions behind it. And then they're like, okay, great. Now we have another thing to figure out what we're going to do with it, how we tackle those things. Because when we think also everybody's ranting around the procurement, but that's just only one of the problem. Real problem is actual integration and adoption, which happens after that, which is nobody's thought about, or often is not thought about. And then the end users are like, okay, now what? Because the system's data needs to flow, you need to secure it, and it needs to be part of the muscle memory, and it needs to be in the doctrine and the process. Who does what? How? And yes, this requires today rethinking from bottom up how we ensure that the guys who are first to go, reconnaissance guys, have eyes in the sky, maybe on the ground, maybe also on the water, if we talk about shadow fleets potentially used as drone platforms. How we have this complex, and it's not any more straight lines like, oh, but we are just land forces. Yeah, but if you have 3 big ships used as launch pad for the drones, it becomes very quickly your problem on the land. So it mixes the cards now quite a lot, and how you tackle all of those elements, and also this mindset wise, how you work with dual use and civilian side. And I understand also the end user's frustrations, because if the end user side is like, or the innovation side is like, we made a very cool thing without even understanding for what is the problem that actually resolves. And this is not a problem, we made a drone. It's not solving a problem. What is the problem? For what? Is it been tested and validated? And what is the pathway? And what is the ultimate cost? Meaning somebody dies if it doesn't work. And I see daily, these kind of even entry-level understandings are just not there. And then it's just frustration, nobody's buying. So it's how we start even talking to each other, and a little bit more meet in the middle. Defense will never become agile. They will never come and run with innovation milestone deadlines, what also investors want, how we get quickly rich. There's no quick rich. But it's how we ensure survivability, and because the complexity now, when we talk about kinetic, we talk about innovation side drones, we talk about AI, the cyber, cognitive warfare, and other elements, then it is overwhelming. and it needs to be tackled. It needs to be covered. Somebody needs to be accountable, but that means somebody needs to understand what this even is, ask the right questions. And that's also what I do. I'm trying to educate all parties, all sides in this. Like, let's learn the ABC first, and then we start figuring out what we can do. It takes time, unfortunately, but that is the only way how we do. We can't just buy things and then discover when we need them, they don't work, because then it's going to be very brutal.
And you mentioned needs, understanding needs, and the desperate requirement to meet more in the middle, whether that is across land, sea, and air forces. That used to make more sense not that long ago, actually, but now does not.
Now it's not.
No, but we can remember a time where that was perhaps more justifiable. Also meeting more in the middle between primes, the big companies supplying most of the military material and have done so for a long time, and policymakers, etc. How do we meet in the middle? You mentioned needs, and it seems like perhaps that could be the true north, the more or less indisputable truth around which people can agree to disagree and be creative, understanding what are the needs that we have and how do we pool resources. If we can meet around there rather than on each and everyone's turf, perhaps that is a pathway to bridging gaps, true understanding of needs.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that means a little bit also like all the parties be more willing and open to share. There's a lot of lessons to learn from Ukraine, a lot, and of course everything comes down to human nature, and we don't like stepping out of our comfort zones and touch the unknown and then be accountable on top of things. It's very hard, but the needs wise is also willingness to say or challenge ourselves. Does that actually make sense? Does it work, what we've been thinking? And it's completely fine to start challenging yourself. And that's a great way to go and do also tabletop exercises, like in different ways, like and not just like we're going to win, but as we see in Ukraine, winning is not that easy, especially when Russia is somewhere in already. You can't get them out. And if you have drones flying and basically the kill zone is like 150-kilometer range very quickly. And we've seen how far Ukrainian drones are flying now when we had them popping here in Estonia and also in Finland and Latvia some weeks ago. So things are shifting fast, and then where are you going to go? All the major parts of countries around the Baltic Sea, most of things are on the coast or near the coast, in the reach, basically. So it can come in various ways. And the needs wise is also like, how do we get over those? We are air or we are in sea, and oh, those are land ones. It's a mindset shift change. And yes, the commands, responses, actions are different. We have to understand that. But how do we utilize the new technologies across, which leads to, like NATO calls it, multi-domain operations and achieving interoperability? This is a good starting point. That helps to test how we can even share data, which is today quite hard to do, and how we train the models and who has what capabilities. I liked a lot when one high commander, again from the Baltic Sea region, said to me, when I asked about certain capabilities and there's none, I said, why it is so hard for the countries to come together, talk and agree who has what strengths, and then we help each other. Because everybody's trying to invent all the wheels at the same time. And those possibilities are still limited, although everybody's pouring money in. You still need the ammunition, you still need the main platforms. They're expensive. You can't replace everything with the drones. It's not how it goes. But identifying how we complement capabilities. What if we're not getting what we order from US? How, when we are cut off, we can't use railways. When we have things coming from the seas, from the shadow ships, what and how we respond and react and do it jointly, and have the situation awareness picture across the Baltic Sea in every direction, every given moment, because at the moment we don't have it. There are new radars coming and there are new systems coming, but again, radar is stationed thing. Everybody knows where it is. To eliminate the radar is very easy. Just one bang and it's gone. And militaries know that. So what is the plan B? And then the C and the D and so on, because our boots on the ground know well that in case of crisis, it's getting messy and hardly anything works perfectly. So you need to have those many versions. Like I said, even Ukraine drones have today like 5-6 different options to be in touch. So we have to start being more open, and of course not everything can be shared, but still quite a lot can be, because military is not alone. There's always border guards, there's always police, there is different kind of functions across countries which also are tied in case there is anything major happens. And we don't need massive conflict. It might be some sabotage, and Russia loves to poke, and they will poke more. So we need to be able to respond and react more than say, we had an incident, we should do something. Because that's kind of the level where we are today.
That is a limiting factor, is it not? If we try to sort of break this down into something that can be appreciated not just by generals, admirals, policymakers on national levels, whose perspective must indeed be high-reaching, far-reaching, and can't go into too much detail. If situational awareness is a bottleneck, for good reason. I mean, you describe an unfolding rabbit hole, I believe are your words, that seems to never end. How to build situational awareness in a practical sense so that we can better map out, perhaps, better understand, better fathom what it might mean if, and perhaps use various devices, simulations. You mentioned tabletop exercises. How do we build situational awareness from the ground up in a way that might bolster people's ability to, when the shit hits the fan, as I believe is an academic military term, think on their feet because they have fought it before?
Yes and no. So the exercises wise is needed. Tabletops are needed, and not only in the bubble of, for example, for the military or certain ministry. I was part of and moderated one exercise in one country, which the scenario was that the state actor hacked into the healthcare system and declared, let's say, 1 million people dead in their country. That automatically stops these persons existing in governmental systems, and you can't reverse that. There's a court process which takes months, and it's a mayhem to challenge that. And there was different parties, different ministries, different entities, prosecution, and cyber institutions and others. And then how it started fold, where is the first response and how it gets going, what systems are also impacted. That led to how you can even respond, who is in charge, and so on. So it's like everybody kind of thought there is a plan, and then it was like, but actually, is it waterproof? And it wasn't. And it never comes with one thing, because we had it also in the scenario that most likely you will have some drone flying. You might have some other DDoS attack on somewhere, or you will end up with massive disinformation campaign. So it's and if it's state attack, and imagine part of those declared dead people are also all the authorities from the government and top down who are decision makers. It's a vacuum, and it's not unrealistic scenario. And that leads again to the laws, how we share information. And then it came out like, maybe it's just the email, how we even tackle those things. And then the prosecution came and said, my dears, the situation is that even this, we have laws from prosecution, but also how public sector data is handled, cyber laws, and that also leading to defense. We don't have digital space written in. We only have floppy disks and CD-ROMs and perfo cards and whatnot. That means we can gather evidence, but we cannot prosecute. So you can't even take actions. So these kind of exercises, when you are pushed out from comfort zones completely and challenged deliberately, and the idea is not to attack anybody or blame anyone. It's rather to show where your shortcomings are and how you can fix them, and that's everybody's own decision how to fix it. And that leads to wider perspective, when and how something should be said with neighboring countries who use similar GitHub tools, when we should maybe even inform NATO, when we should trigger, does it, and when and if it will trigger Article 5, because we don't even have consensus over Article 5 today. So it's chain reaction in the sense, and it would be very, very healthy to also play through whatever kind of crazy scenario somebody might come up with, because let's put it this way, Russia is very creative. There's a lot of things to use, and also play through the scenarios even cross borders. Like, what if this happens? For example, if we have 3 Shadow Fleet ships launching drones on 3 directions for Estonia, Finland, and Sweden simultaneously, then what? And then you have cyber attack and disinformation campaign on top. This secures panic among civilians. And we all remember the COVID respiratory pandemic, which turned out to be toilet paper pandemic. People are not rational. So then you have a lot of unrational people doing crazy stuff. How you tackle that, and then it's very hard to contain this, and undermining trust is what we actually begin with. It's like, that's the goal, break the trust. Maskirovka. So here we are. And then Russia, of course, will use that in their own favor and benefit, and they generate lies. There's another term for that, vranya. I'm lying, I'm lying, but I'm still lying. That's vranya. And that's what they do every day in Moscow. So these kind of challenging aspects are needed, and also for the militaries, definitely as well. Are we sure, or we are comfortable? Mostly we are comfortable with what we know and understand. That's human nature. It's completely normal. But we need to a little bit push ourselves out of those comfort zones. And there are plenty of those in different layers who do understand, like, this maybe is not the best situation where we are at, and maybe we should do something a lot more. But we need to get to the action, not just like we should and look the PowerPoints.
So where does one go? If one has listened to this, if one has started to read your body of work on LinkedIn and other places, and feels drawn to this practical approach to overcoming overwhelm and decision fatigue, where does one go next, Eva, to actually act upon this, whether that is for such tabletop exercises or otherwise? How do we become practical, in your opinion?
What I'm always, when last week I gave a lecture or speech to land forces commanders of Europe. Start with practical questions. Ask the questions. Ask hard questions. Ask easy questions. Challenge, and you have to ask also yourself the questions. Do we have resources? Do we have people? Who will label the data? How we handle the drones? Who will charge the batteries? Simple things can cause a lot of problems very, very quickly. And also, definitely the key is to get out of the comfort zone and start dialogues. And also, yeah, definitely there are people like me needed in the sense to help us, all the parties, to understand what is ongoing, what is not, because it's very hard. I say, if you're understaffed, under-equipped military, it's very hard to take and find time to explain for innovators what the ABC of warfare is, what is ongoing in Ukraine. There's a lot of materials already available, and Ukraine is publishing and talking daily basis. A homework is also what the innovators can do themselves, and I see that too often is not done. It's just like, yeah, Ukraine has drones. No, dig more. There's a lot more to it. And then comes definitely down to, so how to navigate through, because everybody now is like, want to do defense. Not many know what it means or how to eat that thing. But how to actually help us the adoption side. Who does integrations? Who tackles data governance, how we get this in the process, how we trained in the muscle memory. Simulations are very good things to, again, play through the comfort zones that maybe if we're not going to win, then what? What's the plan? How long will last? What is the bad scenarios? And war is ugly, and we need to talk about this. And also, like, if something happens somewhere, how does it impact? Because the reach is going to be broad, even if something should happen in, I don't know, one of the islands on the Baltic Sea, for example, or Slovakia corridor, or I don't know, in Estonia. Because if you look back also what happened in World War II, you have refugees. You're overwhelmed immediately. So what are the plans? And I've seen also interesting so-called scenarios in Europe where it's like, but they have nothing to do with reality or any kind of historical backing. Where does this even come from? So talking with each other ensures we have better understanding what can be the realities, where we can push them, talk with Ukrainians. Yes, the guys on the battlefield are busy, but retired guys tell a lot, and the warfare is changing so rapidly. We have to be able to adjust to something we can't put in a box and label on it. That's the hardest part.
Of course, the hard thing about hard things is what we're here to talk about. But where does one go to have these conversations? Assuming that people listening to this may be new, having recently woken up to this reality, whether they work in defense or adjacent to it, people are novices, unlike yourself, to this realm. What type of online communities or groups, where does one go to find pathfinders such as yourself and have these type of conversations, the ones you just described? If you're a newbie, where do you begin to have these talks?
Very good friend is a Google. Very good friend is LinkedIn. And there are a lot of events ongoing to get if somebody wants to start building something, there's a lot of different kind of hacking activities or events happening. You can just go and listen what has been said, because there's also one coming in very short time, and also in Goda Grannar in Sweden, which is very interesting, and I recommend going there.
Will be there.
Exactly. And then there is these defense associations. They are in every country. They are people who connect things. They are work groups, different, some governmental sites who can also share information. And also, it's very valid to be in information loop over also what the government shares, what the notification channels, what they recommend of doing. And we can't forget, like, heavy responsibilities lie also on critical infrastructure, which covers a lot of economy and jobs and people. And if in those companies as well, or entities or public sector, if you have chiefs of security who are advising do not click on every link you see or which is blinging, listen to those things, because there are reasons behind, and something can start way too easily, something very bad. So it's we live in different worlds, and awareness. Sweden has a lot of very interesting and good events, quite often, and more dialogues are happening, and this, be curious and ask questions, and yeah, fine. And it's completely fine to reach out people across the borders, because this is how you get bigger perspective, as well. And for example, even here in Estonia, what we see, what our intelligence sees, and how we prepare or have been doing things, because, well, we regained independence not that long ago, and I'm old enough to remember the tanks on Estonian streets when I was a small child. So it's a very different world from, for example, what Sweden has been. Sweden hasn't been in active conflict for hundreds of years, haven't had its own soil, and just part of the mission. So it shifts and changes things. And we don't talk about only military and kinetic warfare side. We talk about cyberspace. We're talking about data-related things, just misinformation campaigns, AI misuse. So there's a lot of ways to collaborate and talk and find counterparts all around. And that's interesting, because there are a lot of people who want to collaborate and are willing to collaborate, but for some reason everybody is pulling inwards, and everybody feels we need to invent our own wheels by ourselves, which I don't recommend. Collaboration is better.
Sharing starts with giving, right? And
Exactly.
that is the foundation for true deterrence.
Exactly.
Any final remarks you'd like to leave the listeners to the podcast with, Eva, about how to build community in order to build preparedness?
Ask questions, find people, challenge, visit different countries in the region. Find and there's a lot of things ongoing already in different places, but connecting in those different places now is what we need to do and learn from each other. And there are very cool innovations, things going connecting. For example, with the drones as well, there's initiative combining Sweden, Finland, Estonia. And these are good starting points. We just need more.
And speaking of more, where can one go and find your work? You do publish quite often.
The easiest place, LinkedIn. This is where everything is. I write different mini-series from Russia to hybrid warfare to cyber security, military control command, multi-domain operations, and there are 2 new series coming up. The most are aimed at the moment for the militaries, but there are also things aimed for the innovators. And I do mentor also in Diana and been a little bit tied with Swedish activities. So yes, so just happy if anybody wants can reach out freely. And and also there are people in Sweden and the rest of the countries. So happy to connect with those people as well.
And the link, of course, will be below in the description, wherever you are watching or listening to this. Thank you so much, Eva, for coming on the podcast and tell us what true collaboration entails.
And thank you for having, thank you for inviting. And looking forward for more.
Perhaps even we could do a tabletop exercise of some kind sometime.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned. Thank you so much, Eva.
Thank you as well.